lot of things happened, such as the hostile takeover of CNR magazine. We've got you on the spot, Michelle Blevins. Now, not just the publisher, editor, content creator, but the owner of C&R magazine. How many people did you have to kill?
Thankfully, no one. I was very fortunate in that there are some people that worked very kindly with me through this process, and right. I'm excited to be here.
And they're sworn to secrecy, and if they ever, I know
yes.
He knows where you live, so just keep
that's right.
your word.
That's right. We're not giving out any trade secrets here at all.
Well, that's super exciting. Obviously, crazy news. CNR, like you've mentioned, is a legacy publication of the RAA. So now you independently own it, run it. It's the Michelle Blevins operation now, right? The regime, a new regime, new operation, new vision. So what was that like? I know you've been in publishing and you initially set out for journalism, right? So this kind of fulfills, you're actually working in your realm now.
I am. It's very exciting. Yeah, I had a quick detour a few years ago and went into TV, and that was miserable for about 6 years, and knew I wanted to get back into print. And then that was gone for a year or so there, and now it's back. And so we've been back and forth, and it's exciting. And, I don't consider it, same with R&R. I don't consider it the Michelle Blevins show. I've always considered that I have these amazing platforms that can help educate the industry, and so I don't consider myself an expert or a thought leader. I just feel fortunate to have relationships with people who are, and so then I can get content hopefully from them to then educate the industry from there through their knowledge.
So 2 questions with that. Number 1, are you bringing print back?
Yes. The very first print issue is going to be out in September. It's going to be at the Experience in Las Vegas.
Oh, cool.
At a booth. There's going to be hundreds of extra copies, and it's mailing out in September. So we are racing toward the finish line as of recording this. We're recording this on August 3rd, and I have 20 days left
to get that hammered out.
Yeah.
So what is I know R&R moved away from it. Some of the other industry publications, big publications like Time and Newsweek and those. So where's that balance of losing money, making money but also you posted, I think it was yesterday, like 92% of younger people, was it 35 and under, enjoy reading?
25 and under.
25. Well, I know it seems the shift is, it's so funny. I mean, with the way cable is now, you buy all your individual, but like hyper local seems to be, or hyper focused stuff like Siri, right? Seems to be the trend, and people are willing to pay a little bit more if the value's there, from whatever value they're looking at. Is the magazine part of the free subscription, or is that for sale, or how does that work?
No, it's still free. And I found all of these statistics kind of when I was going through this and creating my media kit. And I felt really strongly even last year that there was really a place for print in this industry. I think every industry is different, but I think in restoration, there truly is a place for print. And I think people get tired of so much screen time now. I think that even through the pandemic, that's something that's changing. It's like, I need to put my phone down. I need to shut my computer off. And then if you've got this print magazine, like I always heard stories of people reading it on the airplane, or they were so excited when it showed up on their desk. And then maybe it made it to a secretary's desk, and then it was on the break room table, and an article got put on the bulletin board. And I always heard those stories, and I loved those. And just having that tangible print is awesome. So I found these statistics, like you said, the 95% of people under 25 read magazines. 73% of adults prefer print on paper for reading. 62% of readers take action after reading a print magazine, and 60% of readers spend at least 30 minutes reading a magazine.
Wow.
When they pick one up. And I also found Forbes did an article showing that publications and newspapers and whatever it may be that are going full digital, they are experiencing like steep declines in engagement from their audience. I think people are just digitally burned out. Even me, like I used to read articles on my Kindle or on my iPad, and now the last probably 2 years, I can't. I have no interest in reading it that way. I buy all of my books and I want to touch it and read it and turn the pages.
Yeah, I hear you there. I mean, maybe that's, our generation. I think you're similar in age to me as far as like the X / millennial. Did you know we're called geriatric millennials?
We are.
I always thought it was I coined the phrase, if anybody uses it, bridge millennial, right? Like
that's much better.
You have values in X, but you understand the millennials or have, some of those attributes but apparently now it's geriatric millennials.
That's great.
Yeah, geriatric millennials. So yeah.
Great. Well, I guess we're geriatric millennials together. That's
obviously fantastic. Aged much better than I have. So, yeah. So, okay. So I said 2 questions: the print magazine, and then number 2, print. Do you remember what my second question was?
I don't think you said the second question.
I didn't. That's why I need your help. It was, so you got print.
So I can tell you a little bit about the purpose of CNR now. So you were talking about that this is.
Why don't you take over this show too, just like you did the magazine?
I will. Yes, I will. Yes. Well, we're doing this as a crossover, right? So, one of the things that I was going to talk about in this is I am seeing more and more collaboration in the industry. I do think for a while people were kind of vying for their platforms, vying for their space. And now I am seeing a lot more, even like vendors and stuff at trade shows, more sharing booths and collaborating. I know a few vendors that are doing that at the experience, where they're sharing one big booth and bringing in their products and showing how they work together. And it's more of a cohesive strategy. And I'm seeing that kind of all together in different ways in the industry, where it's not so divided.
Yeah. Well, Lisa Lavender does a really good job with her publication. And then Jarrett, like, he took my stuff to experience in Charleston. That was super nice. And he has the mobile booth. I think you said you're going to the experience in Vegas. So he's partnering up with Blue Collar Nation, Eric and Larry at Blue Collar Nation. And then we're talking about trying to do something similar at RAA in April, where it'll be the Dyojo podcast, Blue Collar Nation podcast, GMS podcast, Gordy's Biocast. Obviously, now that you got your podcast, we'll have to. You'll probably have your own friggin' booth. So, because you're a baller.
No, no.
You're not planning on having a booth?
Well, I don't know.
I still don't remember my second question. You said you had some questions?
I do have questions for you. Yes. So I have people ask me, who is John Isaacson? Where did he come from? What is his background in the industry? What does he do now? What's his day job? That was 10 questions. So let's start with John Isaacson. What is your day job?
So that's 10 questions from 3 people?
Yes.
Because 3 people are interested in who this John Isaacson guy is.
3 questions from 10 people.
Well, the thing you got to know about me, Michelle, is I'm a real straight shooter.
Lies. Full lies. Anybody who has ever seen that podcast knows that that's.
So day job, I'm in restoration. I'm currently with a company called Aries Restoration, a startup in Graham, Washington. No one knows where that is. And, but pretty much since 2017, that's kind of been my MO, is go in and help a company either onboard insurance work or start or transition into that. And so I've done that with a few companies now. I do remote estimating a very little bit. I'm not wanting to compete. That's not what I want to do. What I've found, though, is if you have issues with estimating.
Oh, nice push there.
The intentional estimating, again, not a how-to on estimating, but more mindset and habits. But if you're having issues with estimating, you're having issues with production. And like we talked about many years ago when we started the Intentional Restorer, I have no interest in doing, only Xactimate all the time. But it does, it's a unique tool that a lot of people struggle with. So I write estimates, I project manage, I build teams, and coach. And try to write mediocre books and put out a real crappy podcast. And that's what it is.
Okay, John. So what if somebody has problems with culture in their company? Then what do you tell them?
Layup. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Be intentional culture. Probably the best part of the book is the introduction by none other than Michelle Blevins. Yeah, she take over CNR magazine, take over this show. She took over our book, Be Intentional Culture. We mentioned Lisa Lavender. This was a collaborative effort, trying not to, I think too often we make culture this weird thing, and it really is just what you are. And so people sharing things that have helped them and failures that have taught them lessons about, bringing things into alignment. So.
Okay, so you've created this brand, the Intentional Restorer, the Dyojo podcast. You've created this brand. So what is your vision from here? You've really made some good relationships in the industry. You had a lot before, but you've really made inroads with some groups. Bravo to you. So what are your future goals from here? Where's it going from here?
I'm not necessarily a goal-driven person. So like last year, I really wanted to start diving into restoration history and try to bridge that, right? Modern restorers. I'm not so young that I fit in everywhere, and I'm not so old that, or whatever I'm trying to say there. I'm not young and I'm not old, right? I'm about 20 years in. So some people that's a lot, and to other people you're just getting started. And so I wanted to reach out and capture some of those historical pieces. If anybody hasn't listened to IAQ Radio, you wrote an excellent article in Restoration and Remediation magazine that really sparked and set me off on a path of tracking certain people down. And so that was my last year. I was really looking forward to going to RIA's conference in Louisiana for the purpose of meeting with a few people and talking about history. So with Dyojo podcast, we've been able to do that. There's still some of those guys that really were pivotal
Good.
in developing the industry, like Claude Blackburn and Cliff Zlotnick. And Pete Consigli, you mentioned John Downey, kind of, tracing the history and those kinds of things. So vision wise, our goal at the Dyojo podcast is just to help people shorten their dang learning curve, so like you said, like create a platform for people that have something good and valuable to say and extract that. So.
Perfect. I love the history part of the industry too. Pete is a wealth of knowledge. He's working on an article for the September issue on Major Long. So that is hopefully coming along. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that. And I'm hoping to, talk to both Pete and Cliff, some about the history of CNR. I'm not entirely sure how long it's been around. Okay. We guessed the mid 60s. Okay. Pete also said something in an email about Ronald Reagan. Oh, shoot. Now I'm forgetting who it was. A past president being a keynote at an RIA convention, like in the mid 60s, like 65 or something like that. So that's something else I have to dig into. And I know that there are archive issues of CNR going hopefully back many, many years in a warehouse or a storage facility or somewhere. So I'm hoping to get my hands on those and, maybe over time be able to turn those into electronic versions that people can see. I have archives going back to 2015 now, but I'm hoping that it'll go a lot further over time and that I can put the history together. Because, you and I were talking offline at the beginning of this, and I want people to know that even though I own the publication now, I'm not trying to take away RA's legacy and background here.
Yeah. Honor that. Yeah. Well, and please, if you find interesting nuggets of history and want somebody to dig in and help you write something, please let me know. So that would be fun. Because it's funny, CNR, Clean Facts, and even R&R, sometimes you start digging and there's links to things that are now archived or you can't get a hold of. So, I've reached out to you and to Jeff and the prior management company for CNR. And so it's interesting when you hit something and you're like, oh, I got to dig a little deeper, so.
Yeah.
So we're going to get more content. CNR is now accessible to all. You've got the print edition coming out. You got your podcast Restoration Today, right? Are you planning on that being like a weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, or kind of as you get content, or?
I'm planning on it being weekly. I released the second one today. And I kind of have a backlog of recordings that I'm doing to kind of, really get things going. And I have a lot of people that I'm looking forward to talking to. I'm going to talk to somebody about kind of generational leadership change within the next few weeks. I'm going to have another one on SEO, Google Analytics, trends, stuff like that. That can be such a stressful area for restorers to navigate, and it's always changing. So Derek and Katie from SOS are going to talk about that. I'm going to do some stuff hiring and recruiting, and there's just so much to talk about in the industry right now. Lots of stuff coming with Ed Cross, talking about assignments of benefits and other stuff that the AGA is doing. Sky's the limit. There's a lot of people to talk to. Over the last few months, I've been making this list of all these people that I want to talk to and pick their brains. And it's amazing to me how many experts there are in the industry, because you constantly have new people. Jarrett constantly has new people. Everybody who has a podcast constantly has these new amazing people. And we all have kind of these different groups that we're pulling from. So there's constantly just new information coming from every angle. And that's awesome.
That was my second question is the noise, right? Like there's so much access to information nowadays. And anybody can publish anything. So information is democratized, which is very good. Like, there's no barriers, but at the same time, that can make it very difficult for somebody, especially somebody new who doesn't know yet how to discern, who is or isn't a credible source. Where do you think journalism has a role in, I guess, even for you at CNR, like how do you, maybe that puts you on the spot, but say an article comes across, there's a difference between it being controversial information and like potentially harmful information. Is there, what do you do with that?
That's a really good question. And this is something that I've waded through actually with the RIA throughout this purchase process. And, I've learned a lot over the last 6 years, I think, of finding that space between what's an ad and what's educational. And then, there's just, okay. So one of the things that I am finding valuable already about CNR being independent from a publishing company or an association is it gives me more freedom to make what I think is the ethically right decision in things. So I don't have to publish something if I think an advertiser is off on it. In the past, I would question when I could what was coming, but I also didn't see everything that was coming. And I know that some things have happened in the past that people were unhappy about, and there was misinformation that got out there. So with CNR, I have some people who have committed to being kind of on an editorial advisory committee. So if I get more technical stuff that's above my head, which a lot of it is, I have people who can vet that for me. And I've also decided, in the past, I've done roundtable discussions, and often that does come from vendors, but I've decided that moving forward, anytime I do those, I'm also going to have like an IICRC instructor or something like that, also have their viewpoint in there. I've used those articles in the past to help restorers make an educated decision based on what they're hearing kind of the vendors say. I think that this industry is really small, and there are a lot of vendors in this industry who are truly experts on their technology. And there are a lot of people who have literally invented the technology that they're selling, so I do not believe that vendors should not be allowed to write. I believe that vendors should be able to establish themselves as thought leaders so long as what they are creating is true and accurate. And so that's why I've put checks into place to make sure that, it's vetted and it's correct. And, I don't have my IICRC certifications or anything like that. Maybe that will come someday. I would love to, go through that and learn more. I'm just not there yet. So I believe that there's a play. I also have promised myself that I will be very clear as well about advertorial things. So it's going to be clearly labeled. If there's something within CNR that, yes, it's going to be labeled that way. It's going to be very clear that it's native advertising or whatever that may be. So I'm hoping to really just find a better middle ethical ground on all of this so that I can get as much education out there as possible and just make it clear and credible.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because that's one thing about history is, and even some of the big hitters, we kind of think like, well, they're from that era, they probably all got along, and that's not the case. There was any, I did ask Pete if there was any, buddy that went to blows, and he said, to the best of his knowledge, no. But definitely people got heated and didn't agree, and maybe still don't agree on certain things. But you mentioned collaboration. Collaboration doesn't mean we just all fall in line, but at some point, you have an agreement about, well, whether it's agree to disagree, or, I'm going to continue to have my opinion, you have your opinion, but on, as far as where we take the industry and coming together, I think that's, I think that's important, especially sometimes you don't always see that, you can be a social media warrior where, on your keyboard, you're going hard at somebody, and you meet them in person, and maybe it's a lot different, right? Or maybe there's a reason they feel so strongly about, this or that. And so it's very, I think it is. And that was really nice with RIA was getting back to in-person, being able to see people in person, and it's harder to hold grudges or whatnot, or when you can see somebody in person and realize they're a real person just like I am. They have a family, they're just trying to feed their family. So what else, what do you, so you got the first print issue coming out in September. We got the Restoration Today podcast weekly, and you're still doing some writing as well, or do you have time for that?
Well, that's a good question. I know I'm only, 2 weeks and I guess 2 days into this when we're recording this. So things do feel a little bit crazy and hairy. I have always felt like, I think I kind of said this earlier, I have always felt super fortunate in the fact that there are many people in the industry who have been willing to write for publications that I've been part of. And so I've had people very willing to write for this, even under a very, very, very tight deadline. So I have a few things here and there that I'm doing. I'll be writing, kind of an open letter to the industry talking about the transitions with CNR and stuff like that. So that will be in the September issue. And then I'm also working on a cool large loss case study from New York City. So again, that's the gist of it, I guess.
So are you, now that you have all this money and all this power and prestige, anybody else you're taking over, and your next because acquisitions are popular in the industry now, who, you're just going to start gobbling up other publications and launching into other industries? And
I have zero intention of doing that as of right now. We'll see. I have a lot of work ahead of me as it is. CNR is a great publication, but there's been a lot of work to do creating a website and the social media pages, and getting a printer and, an art director behind the scenes to do all the layouts and the graphic design. And I've been fortunate to have some really solid industry partners that have really, really helped behind the scenes. I'm really thankful for that. I'll be talking more about who those people are in, coming weeks and stuff like that. But I certainly did not go this alone. I've had a lot of help. So I'm super thankful for that. And so far, just in the last 2 weeks, the industry has been so kind. Everybody that I've reached out to has just been very supportive and open to conversations and all of that. I'm super thankful for that. So I hope it's just moving up from here. So did I see that you have a booth at the Experience?
No.
Do you? Core, that's where you have a booth. Like you have a booth somewhere. Yes. Okay. So what's your intention with your booth at Core? I know you're speaking, right? So you're speaking on culture. Is that right?
Speaking on many of the topics that are brought up in this penultimate mediocre book, Be Intentional Culture. I can't say mediocre book. It has several great chapters by our co-authors and a few very mediocre chapters by yours truly, and a great introduction by Michelle Blevins. But yeah, I talked to Dan Casera, and I think we recorded an episode on his podcast. I don't think that's been released yet. And then we got to talking about culture and those kinds of things. And so was invited to, I think I have 2 sessions on that.
Mhm.
So the books will be there, and we'll be there working on a booth and some t-shirts and those kinds of things. But yeah, speaking on the topics of culture and trying to help that group of people, maybe I think it's cool because there's a lot of, they have the 3 tiers of restoration companies. So a lot of newer companies, a lot of people transitioning, and then some, just pillars, that legacy companies that are crushing it. And so that'll be exciting. And then obviously the people that we met at RAA that are also going to be there, vendors and those kinds of things. A lot of cool people doing cool things, as far as providing new technologies and new approaches. So yeah. Are you going to be at CORE?
I am. I am speaking with Scott Sevier from next year.
Wow.
We're doing kind of an open forum discussion. So we have 2 sessions as well, talking about industry trends. We're going to talk about M&A, some trends with that, inflation, costs,
Okay.
all those kind of big topics. He's the expert. I'm there to make it fun and incorporate some Slido and some quizzes and to kind of keep the conversation going, pick his brain, make him answer tough questions. So
Yeah.
I'm just there as moral support, I guess, but it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I think Dan's going to put on an amazing show.
This is the first or the second?
First.
The first. Okay. So yeah. So drum roll. Yeah, I don't doubt that. I've seen some of the, they've done a good job with the behind the scenes and some of the emotional stuff. And so
the marketing is impressive.
Yep.
All streamlined and it's impressive.
Yep. He's got a good team. Met some of them at the RAA, and just energetic people that seem to be real passionate about making it happen. So yeah,
CORE is growing really fast. I feel like he just started CORE yesterday and now it's like everywhere.
Boom. Yeah, going. So my son's coming with me. He loves running trade show booths. So hopefully he'll sell better than I do.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Maybe I should bring my 7-year-old. I wonder what he would think.
Yeah, I bet he'd crush it. So
he probably would. He's likable. He probably would. Although I'm biased, so I guess I can't say that.
Yeah. Well, they're very cute, and yeah, that's the other part. You got a young family, and now launching this business and everything. So kudos to you. Anything else we need to touch on, hit on? I think I ran through my list of questions.
Yeah, I think I ran through my list of questions as well.
Got the print. Yeah, that would be sweet. Pete's doing the major long history section would be cool. Maybe I could talk to Pete. We can see if we can collaborate and try to do a regular history piece or something.
Yeah, I had written down, like, I have this like running list of ideas for CNR.
Yeah.
But one of the ideas that I have is like a looking back series or an e-blast or a social media post every week where I'm sharing some of these, I'm hoping to get my hands on articles that are by Major Long and Marty King and, the pioneers of restoration. I'm really hoping that I can get my hands on those and get those online to share with the industry. That would just be amazing to read and see. And so that's a big goal of mine.
Well, do you know Joe Kowalski, Service Monster?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's got Ed York's archives, and I've reached out a couple of times, and he's even in my neck of the woods. Like, can I buy you lunch? Can I buy you dinner? Can I take you and your wife out? And so I haven't been able to crack that egg, but Ed's got a lot of really good. He was kind of more of a firebrand or stir the pot guy, and so so I would love to get, but he's posted some of them on his Service Monster blog. Okay. I can't remember what Ed called them, like tips and chats or something like that. So another one to reach out to, especially in the historical, because then if he can promote historical plus his new current thing, then maybe he would be more willing to share with you than he has been with me. So I'd just love to read them. So
yeah, I agree. I love history, whether it's in the industry or outside of the industry. So anything I can get my hands on. But hey, if you want to do the digging, You
Can I
can
tell
consider
them?
yourself the newest
Well,
CNR employee, the historian.
working on an
What?
article for CNR. Will you please share with me, please, Joe? Yeah. Anything we can do to help, or anything anything you need from our vast resources at the Dyojo.
You do have vast resources. You have further reach than I do right now. We're starting from ground zero over here. So I appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah. No. You realize we have 13 faithful listeners, and one of them just died. So
you have like 250 something people that like your YouTube page, and you get decent views on there. I have like 3 people so far.
So I'll tell you, I did invest initially in YouTube advertising or whatever,
Okay.
just to get to that 100 mark.
Okay.
So it probably was about 20, $25, maybe $30, and would turn into 3 to 4 subscribers every time I would promote it. And because I think it was probably somewhere around like 500 views per 3 viewers or something like that. But you get to the 100 mark and you can do youtube.com/CNR magazine. So I wanted that youtube.com/the Dyojo. So like I said, not really a goal driven person, but that was a goal. Like I want to get to 100 viewers. I think I had maybe I had 7 viewers at the time. And so, so most of the rest of that has grown organically, but
it takes time. It takes time. And you're definitely, your face is out there, your name is out there. And now people know what John Isaacson does for his day job. And then you manage to find time to do all of this too, and these kind of pet projects and all that. Good for you. That's a lot.
Well, it was encouraging. I mean, there was probably about 3 or 4 people that reached out at RNA and they're like, "Oh, you're the Dyojo guy." And I was like, "Yeah." So there you go.
Not the only famous one around here.
Well,
okay, you have to edit that out because that sounded really bad on my part. But it's only because you called me famous first, or infamous.
That'll be the
infamous.
Can you say "I'm coming for you, Dyojo"? That'll be the opener. You're next, Dyojo. Just move your mouth and I'll say the words. You're next, Dyojo.
Okay, ready?
Ready? Okay. You're next, Dyojo.
That was not lined up at all.
That's perfect. It's like the old Godzilla movies.
Yeah, yes. Great audio there. Perfect. Well,
yeah, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Definitely sharing. I thank you for publishing the article, shared that. So how do you, I guess this won't record, but like difference in how do you find it's the same thing with like the books and stuff like that and the podcasts. Like I think I have zeroed in the niche for me is like startups and, kind of people transitioning, new managers. I do have a passion for new managers because I think so many people get thrown into the role without any support or prior training.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you finding, that's probably what you're already researching, like a niche for CNR, or do you see one?
No, my goal is to grow this. I know that my list is very diverse. While it's rooted in the RIA list, and that's got, the big companies in it and the, restoration affiliates, people and First Onsite and ATI and Maxons and, like those kinds of companies and, really established companies. I also know that I have some pretty new people on the list and newer companies. And, I had a young lady who owns an IAQ company reach out to me within the first couple of days. I don't know how she heard about CNR, but she was so excited to subscribe and like introduced herself to me over Facebook. So my hope is that there's going to be content for everybody. There's going to be some Restoration 101 level stuff, and then there's going to be the more technical stuff that's by Ken Larson or David Sweet or Chris Wisnowski or, people like that have these kind of like high level pieces that are digging further into the science behind restoration.
Well, so much of, what people are struggling with right now, there's great resources for the technical stuff, and it's all the practical people stuff, stuff that's up your alley too, so That's what's taking businesses down more so than the technical skills, so.
I agree. I just worry, I could publish articles about hiring and recruiting and retention. You had an article about that, and I had just published another article about that this week. And that's absolutely number one topic, number one trend. I've done Slido presentations and polled audiences this year. And then I had it in my e-newsletter last week. And that's by far the number one problem. Yeah. I just worry that, we can write these articles and come up with these ideas, but it's still tough.
Yeah. Well, the point of my article was basically stop playing the blame game, which is not really popular. It's not rocket science. Treat your people freaking good. You can't still pay people $15 an hour. And why aren't they coming to work for us? Well, it's like, well, literally we have a networking group for Washington contractors. We're meeting next Tuesday. And I know that's the conversation to be, it's so tough, it's so hard. Well, what have you done differently? It's so tough, it's so hard,
I think the number one piece of advice I have for people, which can be difficult for contractors, is be a little flexible in what you're looking for. Mm. Don't be so married to that estimator has to know Xactimate. Yeah. Like there are courses to train Xactimate. You can look for somebody that has the construction knowledge and has maybe been a construction estimator in the past and is tech savvy, used other software. Like ask them about other software they've used and they can be trained on Xactimate. And a lot of times you can get somebody that has good character, the right overall skill set for your company trained up so much faster than you can find somebody that knows Xactimate. And I'm sure that a lot of restores also have those horror stories of, well, we hired somebody from within the industry, but their habits aren't so great.
Yep.
So, but I've also, I've done recruiting on the side, and I've also had great success finding controllers from outside of construction, finding operations managers, GMs, project managers.
Yep. Well, I think there's certain things you don't compromise on, right? We talk about they need to be honest, hardworking, willing to learn. Yep. I think those are three things as a manager hiring. I can't make you honest, hardworking, and willing to learn. But if you're those, I can teach you anything. You will learn. And I know you've religiously studied the Xactimate sessions file number 1, but we took somebody from landscaping, no prior experience, and with Xactimate, and he's kicking butt now. He's a right run estimator for a very large company and doing really well for himself. And so I find, especially hiring people, there's usually a reason why they're looking, and retraining bad habits is a whole lot harder than training, from scratch good habits. So
yep. I fully agree. And the more people can think outside the box, I think the better at this point.
Yeah.
You can find a lot. And I think people get concerned about, well, our company doesn't have time. We're so busy. We don't have time to train. Well, that's when you can leverage the other resources that are in the industry. I know that you need to train them and onboard them properly for your company. So don't think that I'm saying that you have to onboard, you have to have a process for that. That's super important. Yeah. But you can also rely on like REITs or Art Restoration Technical Institute or whatever. There are so many places you can go to for that training, or if you're helping train somebody on Xactimate, whatever it may be, you're not in this alone. So, lean on those other industry resources to make that happen.
Lots and lots of resources. Yeah. Yep. It's awesome. Well, sweet. Well, thank you, Michelle. And we will talk again soon.
For more Restoration Today, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, or find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts.